The Millionaire'S twins wouldn't eat and cried, until the new nanny fed them with 2 bottles. Rachel Bennett never imagined her life would change completely when she accepted the nanny job at the mansion of one of the wealthiest women in New York. Businesswoman Victoria Morrison was desperate after 5 previous nannies had quit the job in less than a month. The twins, Ethan and Oliver, just 2 months old, had been crying non-stop for weeks and were absolutely refusing to accept any kind of feeding. Victoria explained coldly that the best pediatricians in the city had already examined the children and found nothing wrong with them. "You are the 6th nanny I've hired," said Victoria, her eyes avoiding looking directly at the cribs where the babies were crying. "The other 5 lasted a week at most each. I hope you're different." Rachel observed the elegant woman in front of her. Victoria had well-groomed red hair, wore expensive clothes, but there was something in her eyes that revealed a deep weariness, almost a hidden pain. "May I ask how long they've been like this, Mrs. Morrison?" "Since they were born," Victoria replied, already walking toward the door. "I have an important meeting. Do what you can, but don't contact me unless it's an emergency." As soon as Victoria left the room, Rachel approached the cribs. Ethan and Oliver were crying with an intensity that broke the heart. It was a different cry than she had heard from other babies. It seemed almost desperate. "Hi, my darlings," whispered Rachel, leaning over Ethan's crib. "What's going on with you?" During the first few hours, Rachel tried everything she knew. She offered a bottle to each one separately, changed diapers, sang lullabies, gave gentle tummy massages. Nothing worked. The babies kept refusing to eat and crying incessantly. It was then that Rachel had a hunch. She had read about twins who develop very special bonds from the womb. Perhaps they needed each other to feel safe. Carefully, Rachel picked up both babies at the same time. It was challenging to hold both, but she managed to position them so they were close to each other. Immediately, the crying lessened a bit. "That's it, isn't it?" murmured Rachel. "You miss each other." She prepared 2 bottles and very carefully managed to position them so both babies could feed simultaneously. To her surprise and relief, Ethan and Oliver began to suckle the milk for the first time in weeks. "My God," sighed Rachel, feeling tears of relief welling in her eyes. "You just needed to be together." When Victoria returned a few hours later, she found a scene she hadn't seen in a long time: silence. The twins were sleeping peacefully in their cribs, and Rachel was organizing the empty bottles. "What did you do?" asked Victoria, with a mixture of disbelief and suspicion in her voice. "They ate," Rachel replied simply. "They ate a lot and are now resting." Victoria approached the cribs but kept a respectful distance, as if afraid to wake the children or perhaps to get too close to them. "How did you manage it?" The other nannies tried everything. "They need to be fed together," explained Rachel. "Twins sometimes develop very strong bonds, even before birth. When we separate them, they feel something is wrong and refuse to eat." Victoria's expression closed off immediately. "I don't have time for complicated methods," she said coldly. "If you got them to eat, keep doing it. Just don't expect me to be part of it." Rachel was surprised by the coldness of the response. It was natural for a mother to want to learn everything about her children's well-being, but Victoria seemed to want to keep her distance. "Mrs. Morrison, perhaps you'd like to try as well. The babies would benefit greatly from contact with their mother during feeding." "No," Victoria replied curtly. "That's why I hired you. I have work to do." In the following days, Rachel established a routine with the twins. Every 3 hours she fed them together, always with 2 bottles simultaneously. Ethan and Oliver began to gain weight and sleep better, but one thing continued to bother Rachel. Victoria practically didn't interact with her sons. The businesswoman left early in the morning and only returned in the late afternoon. When she was home, she avoided the children's rooms. On the rare occasions when she needed to approach the cribs, Rachel noticed she always wore gloves. "Does Mrs. Victoria have a skin problem?" Rachel asked one day to Dorothy Hayes, the senior housekeeper. Dorothy looked around nervously before answering. "It's not a skin problem, dear," she whispered. "Ever since the boys were born, she's changed completely. She used to be a warm woman, you know, always focused on work, but she had a good heart. After the delivery, she became like this, cold." "But why?" The babies are healthy now. I don't know, dear. I just know she avoids touching them. She always wears gloves when she needs to get close. It's as if she's afraid of them. This information left Rachel even more intrigued. How could a mother be afraid of her own children? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out, now continuing. In the second week, Rachel was beginning to feel more confident in her work when Victoria arrived home accompanied by a woman in a white coat. "This is Nurse Margaret," announced Victoria. "She will take over the care of the twins starting tomorrow." Rachel felt her stomach sink. "But Mrs. Morrison, the babies are doing very well. They're gaining weight, sleeping better." "I need someone more qualified," Victoria interrupted. "Nurse Margaret has 15 years of experience in neonatal care." The nurse was a stern middle-aged woman who immediately began criticizing the routine Rachel had established. "Feeding 2 babies simultaneously is not protocol," said Margaret, consulting a binder. "Each child should have their own feeding schedule, independent of their sibling." "But with them, it doesn't work that way," Rachel tried to explain. "They only eat when they're together." "Nonsense," Margaret retorted. "Babies need to learn discipline early. I will implement strict schedules and separate feedings." Victoria watched the discussion in silence, but Rachel noticed something in her eyes. It was almost as if she was hoping Margaret would fail, but at the same time was afraid that Rachel might be right. "Please, Mrs. Morrison," Rachel pleaded, "give me at least 1 more week to prove my method works." "The decision has already been made," Victoria replied, but her voice wavered slightly. At that moment, Ethan began to cry. It was a sharp, desperate cry that immediately woke Oliver too. Within seconds, both babies were crying with the same intensity as weeks before. Rachel instinctively moved to pick up both, but Margaret stopped her. "Leave it to me," said the nurse, "and they just need discipline." Margaret picked up only Ethan and offered a bottle. The baby completely rejected it, turning his head and crying even louder. Oliver, in the crib beside him, began to thrash as if in a panic. "See?" said Rachel, unable to contain herself. "They need to be together." Victoria watched the scene with an indescribable expression. There was something in her face that Rachel couldn't quite interpret. Fear, sadness, guilt. "Perhaps," began Victoria, but stopped herself. "Mrs. Morrison?" asked Rachel hopefully. "Nothing," said Victoria, reassuming her mask of coldness. "Margaret will take over tomorrow. Pack your things." Rachel left that room with a heavy heart. Not just because she would lose her job, but because she knew the twins would suffer again. The next morning, Margaret arrived early with a case full of equipment and protocols. Rachel made sure to explain the baby's routine in detail, but the nurse seemed determined to ignore all the information. 15 years of experience has taught me that every baby is an individual," said Margaret arrogantly. "This special twins business is romanticization." Rachel said goodbye to the babies with a broken heart. Ethan and Oliver seemed to sense her leaving as they began to cry the moment she left the room. She was packing her things when she heard shouts coming from the children's room. It was Margaret, visibly frustrated. "They won't stop crying," shouted the nurse. "I've tried 3 different types of milk, changed their diapers twice." Rachel went downstairs carrying her suitcase, but the babies crying followed her. It was a sound that caused her physical pain in her chest. At the mansion's door, she found Victoria arriving from a meeting. The businesswoman looked exhausted, with deep dark circles under her eyes. "How are the boys?" asked Victoria, trying to sound casual. "Margaret is having some difficulties," Rachel answered honestly, "but I'm sure she'll adapt." Victoria nodded, but Rachel noticed she was wringing her hands nervously. "Rachel," called Victoria when the young woman was already on the sidewalk, Do you really believe they need to be together to eat?" "I believe so," Rachel replied without hesitation. "Twins develop unique bonds. Ethan and Oliver feel safe with each other. When we separate them, it's like we're taking away half of their world." Victoria was silent for a long moment, the babies crying still audible even from outside the house. "Thank you for your work," she said finally, closing the door. Rachel went home with a heavy heart, but 3 days later, she received a desperate call. "Rachel." It was Victoria's voice, but it sounded different. There was panic in it. "Can you come back, please?" "What happened?" The boys, they haven't eaten for 3 days. Margaret tried everything. We called another pediatrician, but they're losing weight rapidly. I don't know what else to do." Rachel felt a mix of relief and worry. Relief at being able to return to care for the babies, worry for their state after 3 days without proper feeding. "I'm on my way," she said. When she arrived at the mansion, the scene was desolate. Margaret was in the children's room, visibly exhausted and frustrated. There were empty bottles everywhere, evidence of the fruitless feeding attempts. "They rejected everything," said Margaret, defeated. "I tried different formulas, different times, different positions. Nothing works." Ethan and Oliver were visibly thinner and cried with less strength, which was even more worrying. Rachel felt her heart tighten seeing them in that state. "May I try?" she asked softly. Margaret made a gesture of surrender and left the room. Rachel approached the cribs. The babies recognized her immediately, and their crying intensified, as if they were asking for help. "I know, my loves," she murmured, carefully picking both of them up. "We'll fix this." She positioned them as she had done weeks before, prepared 2 bottles, and offered them simultaneously. To the relief of everyone in the house, Ethan and Oliver began to feed immediately. Victoria, who was watching from the doorway, let out a sigh of relief so deep it almost sounded like a sob. "How is this possible?" she asked, approaching her sons for the first time in weeks. "They have a special connection," explained Rachel, watching the babies feed voraciously. "They were born together. They grew together in the womb. For them, being apart is like being incomplete." Victoria looked at her sons for a long moment. There was something in her expression that Rachel had never seen before. It was almost like pain. "Margaret can leave," Victoria said softly. "You stay." From that day on, the dynamic in the house began to change subtly. Victoria still kept her distance from the children, but she began to appear in their room more often, especially during feeding times. Rachel noticed that the businesswoman always stood in the doorway, watching from afar, as if she wanted to get closer, but some invisible force was stopping her. "Mrs. Morrison," Rachel said one day, "would you like to try feeding them? I'm sure Ethan and Oliver would love that." Victoria's face closed off immediately. "No," she said quickly. "You're doing well. Better not change what's working." But Rachel had noticed something important. For a split second, before refusing, she had seen desire in Victoria's eyes. She wanted to get closer to her children, but something was holding her back. Determined to understand what was happening, Rachel began to observe her employer's behavior more closely. Victoria always wore gloves when she needed to approach the cribs, avoided direct eye contact with the babies, and left the room whenever they cried. Stranger still, Rachel noticed that Victoria never held the babies. Not once since she had worked there had she seen the mother pick up her sons. One afternoon, while organizing some clothes in Victoria's room, Rachel noticed a photo frame face down on the nightstand. Curious, she turned it over and found a picture of Victoria pregnant, smiling radiantly with her hands on her belly. The difference was shocking. In the photo, Victoria seemed like a completely different person. There was joy in her eyes, a special glow that had now completely disappeared. "What a beautiful photo," said Dorothy Hayes, entering the room. "Mrs. Victoria was so happy during the pregnancy." "What happened?" asked Rachel. "Why did she change so much?" Dorothy hesitated, looking around nervously. "It's not my place, dear, but since the delivery she hasn't been the same. Before she talked about the babies all the time, prepared the room with so much care. After they were born, it was as if she were afraid of them." "Afraid, but why?" "I can't really explain. I just know that on the first day when they brought the boys home from the hospital, she refused to hold them, said she might hurt them. It's been like that ever since." Rachel absorbed this information with growing concern. A mother who was afraid of hurting her own children. That suggested a very deep trauma. That weekend, Rachel was in the garden with the twins when she heard raised voices coming from the living room. It sounded like Victoria was arguing with someone on the phone. "You don't need to come here," Victoria was saying, visibly irritated. "The boys are fine, I'm fine, we don't need visitors." There was a pause and then, "Mother, I said everything is under control. The nanny is very competent." No, I don't want you to come. Why can't you understand that I need space? Rachel realized it was a tense family conversation. Apparently, Victoria's family was worried about her and wanted to visit, but she was refusing. A few days later, despite Victoria's protests, an elegant woman of about 60 appeared at the mansion's door. It was Eleanor Morrison, Victoria's mother. "Where are my grandchildren?" was the first thing she said upon entering, completely ignoring the formal greetings. Rachel was in the garden with the twins when Eleanor found them. The grandmother's reaction was immediate and emotional. "My God, how they've grown!" she exclaimed, quickly approaching. "May I hold them?" "Of course," replied Rachel, surprised by the contrast between the grandmother and the mother. Eleanor picked up Ethan with natural ease and experience, covering his little face with kisses. "Where is Victoria?" she asked. "Why isn't she here with her children?" "She is working," Rachel replied diplomatically. "Working," Eleanor repeated bitterly. "Always working, and the children? Who takes care of the children while she works?" "I take care of them, Mom." Eleanor studied her carefully. "And how are they? Eating well? Sleeping well?" "Yes, they're great," answered Rachel. "They had some difficulties at first, but now they're developing very well." "What kind of difficulties?" Rachel hesitated. She didn't know if she should discuss the twins' problems with their grandmother. "Feeding issues," she said vaguely, "but we've resolved it." At that moment, Victoria appeared in the garden. Her expression immediately closed off upon seeing her mother holding Ethan. "Mother, what are you doing here?" "I came to see my grandchildren," replied Eleanor, not letting go of the baby. "It's been 2 months since they were born and you won't let me visit them." "I said it was fine." "Fine?" Eleanor stood up, still holding Ethan. "Victoria, you are the mother of newborn twins, and you hire a full-time nanny. Where are you in all of this?" "I work," Victoria replied coldly. "I need to keep my company running." "The company can wait," Eleanor retorted. "Your children cannot." Rachel watched the argument uncomfortably. It was clear there were deep family tensions here. "Mother, please don't tell me how to raise my children," said Victoria, but her voice trembled slightly. "Raise?" Eleanor laughed bitterly. "You don't even touch them. When was the last time you held one of your children?" Victoria paled. They are well cared for." "By a stranger?" Eleanor exploded. "Victoria, what happened to you? When you were little, you were always playing with dolls, saying you wanted to have lots of children. Now that you have 2 beautiful babies, you act as if they were... As if they were what?" asked Victoria, her voice sharper than usual. "As if they were a threat." Eleanor finished softly. The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria looked at her children as if seeing them for the first time, and Rachel saw something break in her face. "Mother, you don't understand," whispered Victoria. I can't. Can't what, dear?" "I can't touch them," admitted Victoria, the words coming out like a painful confession. "When I look at them, I'm afraid something bad will happen." Eleanor was silent for a moment, processing the information. "Afraid of what, Victoria?" That something will happen to them," said Victoria, beginning to tremble. "Like what happened to—" She didn't finish the sentence, but Rachel saw Eleanor understand immediately. "Dear," said Eleanor softly. "That was different. You were children. You were twins too," whispered Victoria. Rachel didn't fully understand the conversation, but she realized there was something from Victoria's past involving twins. Something traumatic. "Victoria," said Eleanor, moving closer to her daughter, "you need help. What you're feeling isn't normal." "I can't," replied Victoria, stepping back. "If I get close to them, if I get attached, and then what? What if I lose them too?" Victoria burst out. "What if I can't protect them? What if I fail them like I failed her?" Eleanor placed Ethan carefully in Rachel's arms and approached her daughter. "You didn't fail, Victoria. You were 8 years old." "I was the older sister," said Victoria, beginning to cry. "It was my responsibility to look after her." "For 2 minutes," said Eleanor. "You were 2 minutes older." Rachel began to understand. Victoria had lost a twin sister when they were children, and now she was afraid to get attached to her own twin sons. "That was 25 years ago," Eleanor continued. "It was an accident. It wasn't your fault." "Yes, it was," insisted Victoria. "If I had held her hand tighter, if I had paid more attention—" "Honey, you need to stop blaming yourself for that. And more importantly, you need to stop punishing these innocent babies for what happened in the past." Ethan began to cry in Rachel's arms, and immediately Oliver joined him. Victoria looked at her crying sons, and her face contorted in pain. "See," she said, "even they know I'm not fit to be a mother. They cry every time they see me." "They cry because they sense your tension," Rachel explained softly. "Babies can tell when adults are nervous or scared." "Then it's better if I stay away," said Victoria, already turning to leave. "No," said Eleanor firmly. "You're not running away this time. Mom, Victoria, you have 2 healthy sons who need their mother. I won't let you repeat our family's pain. You will get help, and you will learn to be a mother to these boys." "What if I can't?" "You can," Eleanor said with certainty, "because you already did once." "What are you talking about? During the pregnancy, you took perfect care of them for 9 months. You talked to them, sang to them, worried about every detail. You know how to be a mother, Victoria. It's the fear that's stopping you." Rachel watched the conversation, fascinated. She was finally beginning to understand the complexity of Victoria's situation. "May I make a suggestion?" she said hesitantly. Both women looked at her. "How about we start slowly?" proposed Rachel. "You don't have to hold the babies yet, but you could stay here during a feeding, just observing." Victoria hesitated, looking at her sons who continued to cry. "I don't know. What if they cry even more?" "Then we leave," Rachel said simply. "No pressure, just a try." Eleanor nodded encouragingly. "It's a start, honey." Reluctantly, Victoria agreed. Rachel positioned the babies for simultaneous feeding, and Victoria stayed at a safe distance, watching. When Ethan and Oliver began to nurse peacefully, Rachel noticed a subtle change in Victoria's expression. There was wonder in her eyes, and perhaps even a little bit of love. "They're so small," murmured Victoria. "And so dependent," added Rachel. "They really need their mother." Victoria watched for a few more minutes before leaving, but it was progress, a first step. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. In the following days, Eleanor remained at the mansion, and her presence seemed to catalyze some changes. She didn't allow Victoria to completely avoid her sons, but she also didn't push beyond what she could handle. "Tell her about our childhood," Eleanor asked Rachel one day. "Tell her how Victoria and Charlotte were inseparable." "Charlotte was the twin sister?" asked Rachel. "She was," Eleanor confirmed with sadness. "They were identical physically, but opposites in personality. Victoria was the more serious, responsible one. Charlotte was cheerful, carefree. They complemented each other perfectly." "What happened to her?" Eleanor sighed deeply. "A traffic accident. They were playing in the street, something I had forbidden 1,000 times. A car lost control. Charlotte couldn't get out of the way in time. And did Victoria see? She saw and blames herself to this day. She thinks she should have pulled her sister, or that it should have been her instead of Charlotte. Since then, she's been terrified of getting attached to the people she loves." Rachel began to understand the depth of Victoria's trauma. Losing a twin sister at 8 years old, and then having twin sons, must have been bringing all that pain back. "That's why she avoids the boys," concluded Rachel. "Exactly. She's afraid to love them and then lose them. It's easier to keep her distance than to risk feeling that pain again." That night, Rachel went to Victoria's office. She found her working, as always, but noticed she was only pretending to read the documents. Her eyes were red, as if she had been crying. "Mrs. Morrison?" Rachel called softly. "What is it? Are the boys okay?" "They're sleeping. I wanted to talk to you." Victoria stared at her for a moment, then gestured for her to sit. Your mother told me about Charlotte, Rachel said directly. Victoria's face hardened. She shouldn't have told you. Why not? It's part of who you are. It's the part that stops me from being a good mother, Victoria replied bitterly. Or the part that could make you an even better mother, Rachel suggested. How so? You know what it's like to lose someone you love, Rachel explained. You know how precious every moment we have with special people is. That could make you value every moment with Ethan and Oliver even more. And what if I lose them too? And what if you don't? Rachel countered. What if they grow up healthy and happy, but never knowing their own mother's love? Victoria was silent for a long moment. I don't know how to stop being afraid, she finally admitted. No one does, said Rachel. All parents are afraid. Afraid of not being good enough, afraid something will happen to their children. The difference is that most still try. And what if I try and fail? Then at least you will have tried. And in the process, Ethan and Oliver will know they have a mother who loves them. That same night, around 2 a.m, one of the twins woke up crying. Rachel got up to attend to him, but when she reached the room, she found a surprising scene. Victoria was there, standing by Ethan's crib, still in her pajamas. She hadn't picked him up, but was whispering something to him. I'm sorry, my love, she said softly. Mommy is trying to be braver. Ethan stopped crying for a moment, as if listening, and Rachel saw a tear roll down Victoria's cheek. Mom? She called softly. Victoria turned, looking embarrassed at being caught in a vulnerable moment. He woke up and I was passing by the hallway. Would you like to try holding him? Rachel asked gently. I don't know if I can. I can stay right here beside you, offered Rachel. If you want to stop at any time, I'll take him. Victoria hesitated for a long moment, looking at her son. Ethan looked back at her with his dark little eyes, as if waiting. With trembling hands, Victoria reached out her arms. Rachel helped position him correctly, and for the first time in 2 months, Victoria held one of her sons. The effect was immediate. Ethan calmed completely, seeming to instinctively recognize his mother's scent and warmth. Victoria began to cry silently. He's so small, she whispered. So fragile. But also very strong, said Rachel. See how he stops crying when he feels safe. Victoria held Ethan for a few minutes before handing him back to Rachel, but it was an important milestone, a first real contact between mother and son. Thank you, said Victoria, wiping her tears. Why? For being patient with me, for not judging me for being a terrible mother. You are not a terrible mother, said Rachel firmly. You are a mother who is suffering. It's different. In the following days, Victoria began to appear more frequently in the baby's room. She still couldn't participate in the daily care, but she would observe, sometimes asking questions about the routines. Why do you always feed them together? She asked one day. Because they feel safer that way, explained Rachel. Twins develop unique bonds. They share space in the womb for 9 months, hear each other's heartbeat, feel each other's movements. When they are born, they still need that closeness to feel complete. Like Charlotte and me, murmured Victoria. Exactly. Your mother told me you were inseparable. We were, confirmed Victoria sadly. We did everything together. We slept in the same bed, played the same games, even thought similar things sometimes. Maybe that's why it's been so hard for you to see Ethan and Oliver together, suggested Rachel carefully. They remind you of what your relationship with Charlotte was like. Victoria nodded, wiping her eyes. Sometimes when I see them sleeping in an embrace, I remember how Charlotte and I used to do that, and it hurts so much. The pain never goes away completely, said Rachel softly. But perhaps it can transform into something more bearable, into gratitude for having had Charlotte in your life, even if for a short time, and into determination to give your children the love you two shared. That conversation marked another turning point. Victoria began to spend more time with the babies, first just observing, then lightly touching their faces, then holding their tiny hands. Rachel noticed that each small progress was a monumental victory for Victoria. The businesswoman was literally fighting against years of trauma and fear to connect with her children. 2 weeks after the conversation in the office, something happened that would change everything. Rachel had quickly stepped out to get more formula at the pharmacy, leaving Victoria alone with the babies for the first time. It was only for 15 minutes, but even so, Victoria was nervous. "Everything will be fine," assured Rachel. "They just ate and are sleeping. If they wake up, you call me." But 5 minutes after Rachel left, Oliver started crying. And not a normal cry, it was a sharp, desperate cry that immediately woke Ethan too. Victoria panicked. She tried to calm the babies by talking to them, but they only cried louder. She tried rocking the cribs gently without success. She picked up the phone to call Rachel, but realized the young woman was still in traffic. The babies were crying with such intensity that Victoria feared something was wrong. It was 16 minutes of the loudest crying she had ever heard. In desperation, Victoria did something she hadn't done in 2 months. She picked Oliver up. The baby kept crying, but she noticed he was very hot. A fever. With her heart racing, she picked up Ethan too and noticed he was also feverish. "My God," she murmured, feeling panic take over. "What do I do now?" She called the pediatrician, but it was Saturday night and the office was closed. The answering machine suggested going to the emergency room in case of an emergency. Alone with 2 feverish, crying babies, Victoria had to make a decision. She called the driver and headed to the hospital, holding both children in her arms the entire trip. At the hospital, the on-call pediatrician examined the twins and diagnosed a mild viral infection. Nothing serious, but causing fever and discomfort. "It's common in babies this age," explained the doctor. "With medication and proper care, they'll be fine in a few days." But what marked Victoria wasn't the diagnosis, but rather what she felt during those critical hours. When she thought something serious might be happening to her children, all her coldness and distance vanished. She held them, comforted them, made quick decisions to protect them. "I love them," she whispered to Rachel when the young woman arrived at the hospital. "I didn't want to admit it, but I love them so much it hurts." "I know," said Rachel, smiling through her tears. "I always knew. I was so afraid of losing them that I almost lost them in another way," admitted Victoria. "I almost missed the chance to be their mother because I was afraid of getting hurt." That night, Victoria slept at the hospital with a baby in each arm. For the first time since their birth, she chose to be close when they needed her. When they returned home, something fundamental had changed. Victoria was still afraid, still worried excessively, but she no longer let fear stop her from caring for her children. She began to participate in the daily routines, first just observing Rachel, then helping with small tasks, then taking on some responsibilities by herself. "Can I try to feed them?" she asked one morning. It was something Rachel had been waiting for months to hear. "Of course," she said. "I'll teach you the technique." Positioning 2 babies to nurse simultaneously was challenging, but Victoria was determined to learn. It took several attempts until she got the necessary coordination, but when she finally succeeded, the emotion on her face was indescribable. "They're eating," she said, amazed, "and they're eating with me." "It's because they sense you're relaxed," explained Rachel. "Babies notice when we're tense or afraid." From that day on, Victoria took on more and more responsibilities in caring for her children. She still needed Rachel's guidance for many things, but she was genuinely trying to be present. A month later, Eleanor returned for a visit and was shocked by her daughter's transformation. "You're different," she observed. "I'm trying," replied Victoria, holding Ethan while Rachel changed Oliver's diaper. "I'm still afraid, but I don't let fear make all the decisions anymore." "And how is it?" "Hard," admitted Victoria. "Every day I wake up worried something will happen to them, but I also wake up eager to see them, to see how they've grown overnight, to hear the little noises they make." Rachel watched the conversation with satisfaction. She was seeing Victoria transform from a woman terrified of motherhood into a genuinely dedicated mother. "Rachel was essential in this process," continued Victoria. "She not only took care of the boys, she taught me how to care for them. And more importantly, she was patient with me when I couldn't be the mother they deserved." "And now?" asked Eleanor. "Now I'm learning to balance everything: work, motherhood, fear, love. It's not easy, but it's possible." That same day, Victoria made an important decision. She called a meeting with her main partners. I need to restructure my schedule, she announced. I'll be working part-time for the next few months. Victoria, this could seriously affect the business, protested one of the partners. We're in the middle of 3 important projects, and I have 2 important children too, she replied. I spent the first months of their lives prioritizing work, and I almost missed the chance to really know them. But you've always been career-focused, insisted another partner. That's what made the company a success. And it will continue to be, said Victoria firmly. But now I have other priorities too. If you can't accept that, perhaps it's time we reconsider our partnership. Some partners left the company, but Victoria accepted the financial losses as an investment in her family. With more time at home, she could become even more involved in caring for the twins. She learned to bathe them, to change diapers quickly, to identify different types of cries, to comfort them when they were fussy. Each small achievement was celebrated as a great victory. The first time she managed to get both to sleep at the same time, the first time they smiled specifically for her, the first time she managed to leave the house alone with them for a doctor's appointment. I'm becoming the mother I always dreamed of being, she said to Rachel one day. It took a while, but I'm getting there. You've always been that mother, replied Rachel. You just needed to find the courage to let her show. 6 months after the twins' birth, Rachel realized her role in the family had evolved naturally. She was no longer just a nanny hired to fill a maternal absence. Now she was a partner to Victoria in caring for the children, someone who was there to support and guide, not to replace. Rachel, said Victoria one day, I have a proposal for you. What kind of proposal? I would like you to stay with us permanently, not as a nanny, but as part of the family. Ethan and Oliver love you, and so do I. You saved not only them, but me too. Rachel felt her eyes fill with tears. It would be an honor, she said. There's one condition, though, added Victoria with a smile. You need to teach me everything you know about caring for twins. I want to be able to care for my children on my own when necessary. You already are, said Rachel. You just don't realize it yet. That afternoon, as they organized the baby's clothes together, Victoria made an important revelation. You know, Rachel, for a long time I thought being a good mother meant not feeling fear. I thought real mothers were naturally brave and instinctive. And now? Now I realize that being a good mother means feeling fear and still choosing to love. It means accepting that we will always worry about our children, but not letting the worry paralyze us. You learned that on your own, said Rachel. I only helped where I could. You did more than help, insisted Victoria. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You saw the mother I could be before I could even see her. That weekend, Victoria did something symbolic but deeply meaningful. She visited Charlotte's grave for the first time in 25 years. She brought photos of Ethan and Oliver and left them with the flowers. Hi, Charlotte, she whispered. I wanted you to meet your nephews. They're twins, just like we were. It took me a while to love them properly because I was afraid of losing them like I lost you. But now I understand that love is worth the risk. She stayed there for an hour, telling her sister about her sons, about how hard it had been to connect with them at first, about how Rachel had helped the whole family. I promise I'll take better care of them than I took care of you, she said finally, and I promise I'll tell them about the special aunt they had, even though they never got the chance to meet her. When she returned home, Victoria found Rachel in the garden with the twins. Ethan and Oliver, now 7 months old, were sitting in special baby chairs, watching the trees with curiosity. How was the visit? Asked Rachel softly. Necessary, replied Victoria. I needed to tell Charlotte that I'm finally managing to be happy again, and that she will always be part of our family, even though she's not here. That night, for the first time since the children's birth, Victoria put both to sleep by herself. She sang a lullaby she used to sing with Charlotte, told a made-up story about 2 adventurous little brothers, and gave each a good-night kiss. Mother loves you very much, she whispered to each one, and she will always be here to take care of you. When she left the room, she found Rachel waiting in the hallway. How do you feel? Asked the young woman. Complete, answered Victoria without hesitation. For the first time in months, I feel complete. Rachel smiled. I think my work here is done. What do you mean? Not the work of caring for the children, clarified Rachel. The work of helping you become the mother you always were. Now you can do it on your own. But I still need you, protested Victoria. Ethan and Oliver need you. And I will be here, assured Rachel, but now as family, not as a substitute for the real mother. In the following months, the family dynamic established itself harmoniously. Victoria took on the primary responsibility for the children's care, with Rachel offering support when needed. The businesswoman had found a healthy balance between work and motherhood. Ethan and Oliver were developing magnificently. They were happy, healthy babies, clearly benefiting from the love and attention they now received from their mother. They are so different, observed Victoria one day, while watching her children play. Ethan is more serious, observant. Oliver is more smiley, outgoing. Like you and Charlotte? Asked Rachel. Exactly, said Victoria, but this time without sadness. It's beautiful to see how each child is unique, even as twins. Dear listener, if you are enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we are just starting out, now continuing. When the twins turned 1, Victoria organized a special party, not just to celebrate their birthday, but also to celebrate her own journey as a mother. A year ago, I was terrified at the idea of being responsible for 2 babies, she said in an emotional speech to the family present. Today, I can't imagine my life without Ethan and Oliver. Eleanor, who was watching the party with tears in her eyes, approached her daughter. Charlotte would be proud of you, she said softly. I think so, agreed Victoria. I think she would be happy knowing I finally managed to overcome the fear and allow myself to love completely. During the party, Rachel watched the family she had helped build. Victoria was in the center of the hall with a child in each arm, talking animatedly with guests about the boys' first little steps, about the words they were trying to form, about the mischief they were already getting into. She was a completely transformed woman. Fear still existed. It always would because it was part of being a mother. But it no longer controlled her life. Thank you, said Victoria, approaching Rachel at the end of the party. For what? For believing I could be a good mother when even I didn't believe it. For having patience with me during my worst moments. For saving not just Ethan and Oliver, but our entire family. You did all the hard work, said Rachel. I was just here to support. And will you keep being here? Always, promised Rachel. We're family now. 2 years later, when Ethan and Oliver were already running through the house and filling the days with joy and mischief, Victoria received a call that would once again change the course of her life. It was from an organization that supported mothers with postpartum difficulties and trauma related to motherhood. Mrs. Morrison, said the coordinator, we heard about your story through your mother. Would you consider sharing your experience with other mothers who are going through similar situations? Victoria was surprised by the invitation. I don't know if I would be useful, she said. My situation was very specific. That's exactly why it could be useful, insisted the coordinator. Many mothers face past traumas that interfere with their ability to connect with their children. Your journey of overcoming could inspire other women. After speaking with Rachel and Eleanor, Victoria decided to accept the challenge. She began by participating in support groups, sharing her story, offering guidance to mothers facing similar difficulties. It's incredible, she said to Rachel after her first talk. How many women suffer in silence, thinking they are failures because they can't connect instinctively with their children. And now they have someone who understands, said Rachel, someone who went through it and managed to overcome. The volunteer work became a passion for Victoria. She created a special program for mothers of twins, incorporating everything she had learned about the unique bonds between siblings born together. Twins are special, she would say in her talks. They develop connections that go beyond what we can fully understand. As mothers, our role is to honor that connection, not fear it. 5 years after the first time Rachel fed the twins with 2 bottles simultaneously, the family had settled into a happy and healthy routine. Ethan had become a curious and observant child, always asking questions about how things worked. Oliver was more artistic. He loved to draw and invent stories. They are so different, but they still have that special connection, observed Victoria one day, watching her sons play together in the garden. Like you and Charlotte had, said Rachel. Yes, agreed Victoria, but now she could speak of her sister without pain. And that makes me happy, not sad. It's beautiful to see how the love between siblings can be strong and lasting. Rachel smiled, watching the woman she had helped transform. Victoria was no longer the cold, distant businesswoman she had met years ago. She was a dedicated mother, a woman who had learned to balance love and fear, work and family. You know, Rachel, said Victoria, sometimes I think about what would have happened if you hadn't discovered that they needed to be fed together. Someone would have figured it out eventually, said Rachel modestly. Maybe. But you didn't just figure that out. You helped me figure out how to be their mother. And that made all the difference. That afternoon, as they prepared the boys' snack together, Victoria made a profound reflection. Do you know what was the most important lesson I learned from all this? What? That love doesn't protect us from pain, but it's worth feeling pain when it's for love. For years I tried to protect myself by not loving. I discovered that a life without love isn't protection. It's just an empty life. And now I love my children more than I ever imagined possible. I'm afraid every day that something might happen to them, but I don't let fear get in the way of our relationship. It's what Charlotte would have wanted me to do. When Ethan and Oliver turned 6, Victoria organized a special ceremony in the mansion's garden. She planted 2 trees, one for each son, and a third in honor of Charlotte. This tree, she said, pointing to the smallest of the 3, is for Aunt Charlotte, whom you never met, but who will always be part of our family. She was my twin sister and she was very special. Like us, asked Oliver. Exactly like you, confirmed Victoria, and she would be very happy knowing how you love and care for each other. Mommy, said Ethan seriously, do you still get sad when you think about Aunt Charlotte? Victoria thought carefully about her answer. I miss her, she said honestly. But I'm not sad like I used to be. Now, when I think of her, I remember the good times we had together, and I'm happy because you have with each other what I had with her. Rachel watched the conversation with emotion. Seeing Victoria manage to talk about Charlotte with her sons, turning trauma into a love story, showed how much she had grown and healed. That night, after the boys went to sleep, Victoria and Rachel sat in the garden to talk. Rachel, I need to tell you something, said Victoria. What is it? I received an offer to write a book about my experience, about motherhood, trauma, overcoming. The editor thinks it could help many mothers. How wonderful. Will you accept? Only if you help me, said Victoria. The story isn't just mine. It's ours. You were essential in all of this. It would be an honor, said Rachel, moved. The book could be dedicated to mothers who struggle to connect with their children, to show they are not alone, that it's possible to overcome traumas and fears. And to show that every family finds its own path, added Rachel. There isn't just one way to love. The book, 2 Hearts, 1 Love, A Mother's Journey with Twins, was published 2 years later and became a success among mothers and healthcare professionals. Victoria traveled to several cities giving lectures, always accompanied by Rachel and, when possible, by her sons. The most important thing I learned, she would say in her lectures, is that being a mother isn't an automatic instinct for all women. For some of us, it's a learning process, and that doesn't make us worse mothers, just different mothers. Ethan and Oliver, now 8 years old, were proud of their mother and the positive impact she was having on other families' lives. Mummy helps other mothers like Rachel helped our family, said Oliver one day. It's beautiful when people help each other, agreed Ethan. A decade had passed since Rachel arrived at the Morrison mansion. The twins were now intelligent and affectionate pre-teens who maintained a special connection with each other, but had also developed independent personalities. You know what my greatest achievement is, said Victoria to Rachel on a Sunday afternoon. What? It's not having built a successful company, nor having written a book, not even having overcome my traumas, she said, watching her sons play soccer in the garden. It's having managed to give Ethan and Oliver what Charlotte and I had, a happy childhood full of love and security. They are lucky to have you as their mother, said Rachel, and I am lucky to have them as my sons, and to have you as family. That night during dinner, Ethan asked a question that surprised everyone. Mummy, do you remember when we were babies and couldn't eat? Victoria almost choked on her food. You remember that? Not exactly, said Oliver, but sometimes we dream about things from when we were little, and we are always together in the dreams. Rachel told us we could only nurse when we were close to each other, added Ethan. It's true, confirmed Victoria. You were very small and felt safer together. Like you and Aunt Charlotte, asked Oliver. Exactly, said Victoria, smiling. And I see you are still like that. Different, but always looking out for each other. We always will be, said Ethan with certainty. And we will always look out for you too, added Oliver. Rachel felt her eyes fill with tears seeing that family she had helped to heal. 15 years after that first day, when she managed to feed the twins with 2 bottles, Rachel was in the mansion's garden preparing a very special party. Ethan and Oliver had just graduated from high school and earned scholarships to prestigious universities. More importantly, they were well-balanced, caring young men who maintained a beautiful relationship, both with each other and with their mother. Rachel, called Victoria, arriving in the garden, have you seen my speech for tonight? Yes, I have. It's beautiful. Victoria had been invited to be the graduation speaker for her sons, an honor that made her nervous but proud. 15 years ago, I couldn't even hold my babies in my arms, she murmured. Today, I'm giving a speech about motherhood to an audience of 300 people. Life has those little ironies, said Rachel, smiling. It's not irony, corrected Victoria. It's growth. It's proof that it's never too late to change, to learn, to become who we truly want to be. That evening, Victoria's speech was moving and inspiring. She spoke about second chances, about the importance of asking for help, about how love can heal even the deepest wounds. My children taught me that being a mother isn't about perfection, she said, looking directly at Ethan and Oliver in the audience. It's about presence. It's about being there even when we're afraid, even when we don't have all the answers, even when we make mistakes. After the ceremony, the family gathered at home for an intimate celebration. It was just Victoria, the twins, Rachel and Eleanor, who at 80 years old was still a loving and strong presence in the family. I have an announcement to make, said Ethan during dinner. So do I, said Oliver at the same time. The brothers looked at each other and laughed. You go first, said Oliver. I'm going to study pediatrics, announced Ethan. I want to work with newborns and their families. And I'm going to study psychology, said Oliver, with a specialization in family therapy. Victoria was silent for a moment, processing the information. You want to help families like ours, she finally said. We want to help children and parents connect, confirmed Ethan, like Rachel did with us. Like you've done for so many other mothers through your work, added Oliver. Rachel was openly crying. I'm so proud of you both, she said. The babies who once could only eat together are going to help other families find their own paths to love. It's as if everything makes sense, murmured Victoria, as if our whole journey has a greater purpose. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Victoria went out to the garden. The 3 trees she had planted years ago were now tall and full. She sat beneath Charlotte's tree. Hi, little sister, she said softly. Your nephews graduated today. They're becoming wonderful men. I think you'd be proud of them. And I hope you're proud of me too. I managed to be the mother you always said I could be. Rachel, who couldn't sleep, found her there. Is everything okay? It's perfect, said Victoria. I was just giving thanks. To Charlotte, for showing me what unconditional love is. To you, for teaching me how to care for my children. To the boys, for giving me the chance to learn how to be a mother. And are you thanking yourself? Asked Rachel. Victoria thought for a moment. You know what? I should, shouldn't I? You should. You faced your fears, overcame deep trauma, learned to love without guarantees. You deserve recognition for your own courage. Thank you, Victoria, Victoria said to herself aloud. Thank you for not giving up when everything seemed impossible. The 2 women stood there in silence for a few minutes, watching the stars and reflecting on the extraordinary journey they had shared. "Rachel," Victoria said eventually, "you saved our family." "No," Rachel replied softly. "You saved yourselves. I just believed it was possible." 5 years later, Ethan was already a respected pediatrician specializing in neonatal care, working at the same hospital where he had been born. Oliver was a psychologist working with families in crisis, with a special focus on trauma related to parenting. Victoria continued her work supporting mothers in need, now through a foundation she had created. Rachel led the training program for professionals working with families of twins. "You've created an incredible legacy," said Eleanor one day, looking at family photos over the years. "We created it together," corrected Victoria. "Every person in this family helped heal the wounds and build something beautiful." "And Charlotte?" asked Eleanor. "Do you think she knows?" "I think so," replied Victoria without hesitation. "I think she's happy seeing that I managed to turn the pain of losing her into love for my children." That same month, a special letter arrived. It was from a young mother of twins who had read Victoria's book and attended one of the support groups. "Mrs. Morrison," the letter said, "I wanted you to know that your story saved my family. Like you, I was terrified to get close to my twin babies because of past trauma. Your book showed me it was possible to overcome the fear and learn to love. Today, 6 months later, I am a present and happy mother. My children are healthy and secure. Thank you for having the courage to share your pain so other mothers could find healing." Victoria showed the letter to Rachel with tears in her eyes. "See," said Rachel, "it was all worth it. The pain, the fear, the difficulties, it all led to this. To being able to help other families," Victoria completed, "and to having raised 2 extraordinary sons who will continue this work." 20 years after that first day when Rachel fed the twins with 2 bottles simultaneously, the story had become legend in the Morrison family. Ethan and Oliver, now 22-year-old men, told their own children about how they almost didn't connect with their grandmother, and how a special nanny had saved the whole family. "Aunt Rachel taught Grandma how to take care of you when you were babies," Ethan would tell his young daughter. "And Grandma taught many other mothers how to take care of their children," Oliver would add for his son. Victoria, now with greying hair but still full of energy, continued her work supporting families. At 62, she was nationally recognized as an authority on motherhood and overcoming trauma. Rachel, who never married because she considered the Morrisons her true family, was the beloved aunt to all the children and the advisor on all family matters. "Do you know what the most beautiful part of our whole story is?" said Rachel one day during a Sunday lunch. "What?" everyone asked in chorus. "It's that it all started with love. Ethan and Oliver loved each other so much they could only eat when they were together. That love saved you, then it saved Victoria, then it saved our whole family, and now it's saving hundreds of other families. Love multiplies," said Victoria. "It never diminishes. It always grows." "Like you two," said Oliver, looking at Ethan. "Even as adults, we still have that special connection." "We always will," confirmed Ethan. "It's who we are." That afternoon, Victoria did something she hadn't done in years. She took out the old photo album and showed her grandchildren the first pictures of their fathers as babies. "Grandma, why are Daddy and Uncle drinking bottles at the same time?" asked her 4-year-old granddaughter. "Because they needed each other to feel safe," explained Victoria, "like we all need each other." "Like our family?" asked her 3-year-old grandson. "Exactly like our family," confirmed Victoria, hugging the child. Rachel watched the scene with a smile on her face. The woman who 20 years ago couldn't touch her own children was now the most affectionate and present grandmother one could imagine. "What are you thinking about?" asked Victoria, noticing Rachel's thoughtful gaze. "I was thinking about how sometimes the greatest blessings come disguised as problems," replied Rachel. "If Ethan and Oliver hadn't had trouble feeding, maybe you would never have overcome your fears." "And I would never have become the mother I am today," agreed Victoria. "And you would never have helped so many other families," added Ethan. "It's as if everything had been planned," murmured Oliver. "Or perhaps," said Eleanor, who at 85 still actively participated in family life, "that's how love works. It finds a way to heal, to grow, to spread." That night, after everyone had left, Victoria and Rachel sat on the porch to talk as they had for 2 decades. "Rachel, can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course. Have you ever regretted staying with us instead of starting your own family?" Rachel smiled. "Victoria, I did start my family. You are my family. Ethan and Oliver are like sons to me. The grandchildren are my grandchildren too. Eleanor is like a mother. You are my sister." "Sister," repeated Victoria, moved. "That's exactly what you are." "And you know what's most beautiful?" continued Rachel. "Our family was built on love, on choice, on dedication. We don't need to share blood to share a life." "Charlotte would be happy to know I gained a sister," said Victoria. "That after losing a twin sister, I gained a chosen sister." They sat in silence for a few minutes, watching the stars. "Victoria," Rachel said eventually, "you know that Ethan and Oliver always knew they were loved, right? Even when you were afraid to love them, they felt the love. How can you be sure? Because babies sense everything. They knew you wanted them, even when you couldn't show it. That's why they could wait for you to overcome your fears." "They gave me time," murmured Victoria. "They gave me a chance to learn." "Like Charlotte would have done," Rachel said softly. "It's true," agreed Victoria. "Charlotte was always patient with me." 25 years after that first day she managed to feed the twins, Rachel was preparing a very special party. It was the silver anniversary of her arrival in the Morrison family. Ethan and Oliver, now family men themselves, were organizing a tribute to the 2 women who had built their childhood with so much love. "We want to thank," said Ethan in his speech, "our mother who learned to love us without reservation, and our Aunt Rachel who taught us that family isn't just blood, it's choice and dedication. You gave us the solid foundation we needed to become the men we are today," added Oliver. Victoria, now 67, was too emotional to speak. She just hugged her sons and whispered, "Thank you," several times. Rachel, at 55, had grey hair, but the same warm smile as always. "I'm the one who's thankful," she said, "for allowing me to be part of the most beautiful family I could imagine." That night, very late when everyone had gone, Victoria found Rachel in the baby's room, which was now used for the grandchildren when they visited. "You know where it all began," said Victoria, touching one of the chairs where she used to feed the twins. "And where it all continues," said Rachel, looking at the toys scattered on the floor. "Rachel, I have something to give you," said Victoria, handing her an envelope. "What is it?" "Open it." Inside the envelope were legal documents making Rachel the official heir to a portion of Victoria's estate, along with a letter. "Rachel," the letter said, "you saved my family and taught me that love is stronger than fear. I want you to be officially recognized as part of this family. You are sister, aunt, grandmother, daughter. You are everything a family needs, someone who loves unconditionally. With all my love and eternal gratitude, Victoria," Rachel cried as she read the letter. "You didn't have to do this," she said. "Yes, I did," insisted Victoria. "You dedicated your life to our family. It's only right you be officially recognized as family." 30 years after that first transformative day, the story of Victoria, Rachel, and the twins had become a case studied in psychology and pediatrics departments. The book 2 Hearts, 1 Love was in its 5th edition and had been translated into 8 languages. The foundation created by Victoria had helped thousands of families across the country. Ethan, now a renowned pediatrician, was an international specialist in twin bonds. Oliver had become one of the country's most respected psychologists in the field of family trauma. "Do you know the greatest lesson our family teaches?" said Victoria during an interview for a documentary about family resilience. "What?" asked the interviewer. "That it's never too late to learn to love. That fear can be overcome. That family is built with dedication, patience, and the conscious choice to be present." "And what was the most important moment of this journey?" Victoria thought for a moment. "The moment when Rachel managed to feed the boys for the first time. Not because it solved the feeding problem, but because it showed me that solutions exist when people care enough to look for them." Rachel, who was also being interviewed, was asked about her perspective on the story. "The most beautiful thing," she said, "was watching Victoria transform from a terrified woman into an extraordinary mother, and seeing Ethan and Oliver grow up secure in the love of their entire family. Have you ever thought about how your life would have been different if you hadn't accepted this job? I think about it sometimes, admitted Rachel, but I can't imagine a better life than this one. I lived to see 2 children become wonderful men. I helped a woman overcome deep trauma. I was part of a beautiful family. What life could be better? Ethan and Oliver were also interviewed. Do you remember being babies who could only eat together? Asked the interviewer. Not exactly, said Ethan, but we always knew we had a special connection. And did that influence your career choices? Continued the interviewer. Of course, answered Oliver. We grew up in a family that was healed through love, patience, and understanding. Naturally, we wanted to help other families find that healing. What message would you give to parents who are facing difficulties? Don't give up, said Ethan. Seek help when you need it. And remember that family is built day by day, added Oliver. There's no perfect family, but there are families who choose to work together to overcome problems. At the end of the documentary, the whole family appeared together. Victoria, now 72, Rachel, 60, Ethan and Oliver, 35, and all the grandchildren playing in the same garden where it all began. This, said the narrator's voice, is proof that love can overcome any fear, heal any wound, and build bridges where there were once only chasms. End of story. Now tell me what you thought of this story of resilience and family love. Do you believe Victoria made the right decisions throughout her journey? How would you deal with such deep fears related to motherhood? Leave your reflections on this beautiful story of transformation in the comments. Thank you for joining me in this moving narrative. Don't forget to leave your like and, more importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other touching stories like this one.